Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Eva Mackey, a family physician, and I'm here with a very special guest, registered dietitian Danielle Carr. Let me tell you a little bit about us, both of us. I'm a family physician, and I have a clinic in Rockwall and provide full spectrum family medicine. It is a unique style of practice called direct primary care. It's all about getting you better quality, patient-centered care and having complete price transparency, containing the costs for you as well. And the great thing about it is that insurance is not required. So this is a great fit for a lot of people. And I have Danielle Carr. I'm very excited to have Danielle. She's a registered dietitian. She also has a really amazing cooking show on YouTube that you need to check out. It's called the Fit Girl and Fat Boy. And I think, I'm sure that Danielle is the fit girl and her husband's the fat boy, right?
That is right. Yes.
And the dynamic between those two is so funny and cute on the show. You have to check it out. Plus, she has some really amazing heart healthy recipes. And that's what we're here to talk about is heart healthy recipes. That's what I have Danielle here to talk to me about. So anyway, check out her YouTube show. And let me just talk a little bit about heart disease here in America. Heart disease is the #1 killer of Americans. I mean, the statistics are staggering. One person in the US dies every 36 seconds from heart disease. We lose an average of 655,000 people a year from heart disease. So that's over 500,000. And just to compare, last year we lost 556,000 to corona disease. So we actually lost more people to heart disease. We all know somebody who has heart disease, and most of us know somebody who's died from heart disease. So heart disease is such a huge killer, and preventing heart disease and treating heart disease is a big part of what I do in my practice. A lot of the medicines I prescribe are focused on either preventing heart disease or treating heart disease. So all of the cholesterol lowering medicines, the blood pressure medicines, those things it's all about keeping your heart healthy. So, I prescribe medicines, but I would really love for people to be able to control or prevent heart disease through their lifestyle. So through healthy eating, that would be so much better for them in the long run than having to take medicines. I would rather not have to prescribe the medicines. So that's what Danielle is here to talk to us about is how to eat a heart healthy diet. So that means controlling things like cholesterol and blood pressure with your diet. And it can be really confusing and hard to know what to do with your diet because there are so many fad diets and there's so much conflicting information out there. But this is something that Danielle really knows a lot about. So we're going to let her help us out there and clear things up for us. And so I'm just going to start with the first question here. And that's about fat. So we all know that we need to reduce fat in our diet because reducing fat helps to control the cholesterol. But it's confusing because there's different kinds of fat. And I know that some kinds of fat are actually healthy. And then I'd also like to know what's the difference between eating fat and cholesterol? We hear about reducing fat in your diet, but should we be reducing cholesterol as well? So what are your insights on that, Danielle?
Yeah, those are great questions. So it is confusing, especially because back in the day, there were so many things about having no fat or no fat diets or low fat diets. Then now you hear everything about high fat diets, but yet you still shouldn't eat some fat. It's very confusing. And I think one thing to point out is so many people, I think we think about the old way of, oh, I shouldn't have any fat. Fat is good. There is fat that's good. And fat's a major source of energy. It supports balanced hormones. It's a catalyst for absorbing our vitamins and our minerals. But like you said, there's so many different types of fats. So we'll briefly touch on these for time and to hold your attention or other people's attention. But we have saturated fats. We have unsaturated fats. We have trans fats. We have polyunsaturated fats. So let's just break this down a little bit. And I think especially because that part of, oh, don't have any fats. Oh, now have all high fat diet. It's kind of like, well, who do you trust? So here's a little snapshot of it. So when we look at saturated fats are the things that they've been banned for so long. There are some that are maybe okay in moderation, but we need to have less than 10% in our diet. Saturated fats are things usually that are completely solid at room temperature. But like if butter, let's say you leave butter out, well, it's going to completely solidify. Eggs can have saturated fat in them. Palm oils, coconut oils, red meats like beef and lamb and pork. Some things with skin on, chicken, so poultry, we want to take that off. So watch for things that are your saturated fat foods, just like those that I mentioned. Cheese, ice cream. We really want to limit those. Again, that's 10% or less in our daily diet. The fats that we really want to focus on are monounsaturated fats. And those fats protect our heart. They help with insulin, meaning our blood sugar not skyrocketing up and down. So in turn, they're going to help with weight loss if somebody's wanting to lose weight or maintain their weight. And these fats are liquid at room temperature. So things like olive oil, avocado oil, macadamia nuts are great sources. Avocados are great sources. These fats are the fats that we actually want to get in because they help our heart. The less healthy fats that are at room temperature are going to be things like canola oil and peanuts and peanut oil. Just like a little fun fact, sometimes people think, oh, peanuts are great. They're quick, they're easy. They might be cheap, but they actually have a mold that produces an aflatoxin, which can increase risk of cancer, quite large. So really watch out for those things. Another fat is polyunsaturated. And these fats are omega-3s and omega-6s. So a lot of people probably have heard omega-3s, that we need to get omega-3s in our daily diet. That is crucial. So let me go back for a minute on these omega-3s, omega-6s. Our standard American diet is full of omega-6 fatty acids. Those are things like chips, any processed foods, soybean oils, corn oils, grapeseed oils, things that are actually already in foods that we don't even know it. So if you're grabbing a handful of Doritos, you're grabbing a handful of even granola bars can have polyunsaturated, the omega-6 fatty acids in them. So we want to limit those processed foods and we want to go to omega-3s. And omega-3s are things that are heart healthy. We should have 2 servings a week of omega-3s in our body. And those are things like salmon, crab, any shellfish, chia seeds. Am I missing anything there? Flaxseed oils are great. And then we have the 4th one, which is trans fat. And these are the worst type of fats that we can get in our daily diet. And so I think maybe most of the population has heard about trans fat now. And we hear, okay, well, I shouldn't have any in our diet. But watch that. One thing to look at for trans fatty acids is, let's say you grab a bag of Doritos and it says no trans fat. Yay, that's great. Again, these are the worst types of fats in our body because they hurt our heart health. They increase abdominal weight gain. They make us hungry later. They make us craving more foods, especially high fat foods. So you grab a bag of Doritos, you see no trans fat. But if you look at the actual ingredients, you would see partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, and that means trans fat. Peanut butter, like Jif peanut butter. I'm sure most of the population has Jif peanut butter in their pantry. It's easy, it's quick, it's cheap, it's great for kids. But if you look at the ingredients, there's partially hydrogenated vegetable oil in there. And that's trans fat, the type that we should have 0 in our diet. Absolutely 0. So let's take it back to the top. We talked about saturated fat. We should have less than 10%. Trans fat, 0. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So I keep driving that home because so many people don't know that they're eating trans fat. So watch that. Whipped cream.
Doritos?
No Doritos. I know.
Oh man, I like Doritos. But even peanut butter.
Even peanut butter.
Oh
and so
goodness.
I never like to talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, but surely not all peanut butter. Like what if you get one that's like more of a natural peanut butter, like not one of the big brand names, but one of the more natural ones? Are there peanut butters out there without the partially dehydrogenated vegetable oil?
Yes, absolutely. So you can, that's a great question. There's not many. There's a few brands out there that have just peanuts and oil, or just avocados. That'd be good. Just almonds and salt. So between the peanut butters, I would say, or butters, I guess I could say, I don't always recommend peanut butter to clients. If that's what somebody loves and they want peanut butter, great, we can do that. You just want to get the natural version, like you mentioned. One of the best versions you can get is you can go to a Kroger or any other store, and they usually will have peanuts that you just hit a button and it'll process into peanut butter. Same thing with avocados.
Then you got to stir it up, right? Because those are the ones that are not emulsified already. The oil and the peanuts are separate.
It's a little frustrating, but yeah. I also tell people just do it one time and that's it. And just stir it up really good. Put it in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Well, it's a little extra work, but it's worth it.
It is. It really is worth it. And again, it's not to say if you had a handful of Doritos, that's the worst thing. I don't love to talk about good versus bad foods. There are healthier options. But I think the real issue is what people do is we might grab a handful, but then we grab another handful and another handful and another handful. So really watch that. I hope that helps on those fats. Another question you asked was cholesterol, right? Do we need to watch cholesterol or cholesterol versus fats? So cholesterol and fat, they're both lipids. That's one of the main things. Here's the thing. The difference is, unlike fat, cholesterol really can't be burned off. Let's say through exercise. Our liver produces cholesterol anyway. And so a lot of people might go to a doctor, and you are a doctor that gives more information, which is amazing. And I love that. You're high on nutrition. You really help patients through this. But a lot of times people might leave somebody and they've heard, oh, I have a high cholesterol. Okay, I need to just limit cholesterol. Well, that's where we find a problem. It's really about the types of fat that you're eating. Yes, we can lower cholesterol, but if we're watching the type of fat we're eating overall, you're going to lower cholesterol anyway. So we need less than 300 milligrams of cholesterol in our daily diet. That is something that I don't really talk to clients about because, again, they might be so focused on that they're not looking at the overall picture. And especially because you could be walking through the grocery store and you see animal crackers and it says no cholesterol. Well, of course, a manufacturer brand is going to put no cholesterol on those animal crackers because it looks good. Well, animal crackers don't have any cholesterol because they weren't a living organ, a living being. So here's a good way to look at does my food have cholesterol in it? If that food didn't have a liver, it wasn't a living being with a liver, because our liver processes cholesterol, then that's not going to have any cholesterol anyway. So people might think, oh, I can have all the animal crackers I want because there's no cholesterol. Well, in turn, this is another topic for another day, but all that high sugar is only going to be stored in our body as fat and be bad in the long run. So really watch that. I mean, beef, dairy products, eggs, those have a lot of cholesterol in them. But again, I wouldn't worry so much about that. I would more worry about, are you having trans fat in your diet? Are you having saturated fats, things with chicken with skin on? I wouldn't say more than 4 eggs a week. ADA is going to say more than 3 eggs a week. Things like that, high coconut oil, high processed oils.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Did you want to add anything else about fats?
No, I think the only thing I would add is watching these things in moderation, because when we have fat, remember, fat's full of calories, which is fine. When we're not so much into the science of how many calories we're eating in the day, it's more about the types of foods that are affecting our body. But remembering that those fats that we eat, the bad fats, can increase our bad cholesterol. And if you're a patient of Dr. Eva's, you can talk to her more about this. Or if you have questions, you can always ask me. But we want to increase our HDL, as you know, we want HDL, think high. Yeah. We want that good cholesterol.
Good cholesterol.
And then and our LDL low. So we could say bad cholesterol.
Bad cholesterol, yeah.
There's so much I want to go into, but I know time-wise we won't.
Right. There's so much more we could go into. Yeah. But I think we'll save it for another day.
Yes. Yes. So we'll just leave it at that, just watching that.
Yeah, but that was really awesome. I appreciate you explaining the different kinds of fat, and I think that's going to help a lot of people. So I'm going to move on now. I know that a high fiber diet is important. I know that fiber reduces cholesterol. Isn't that right? So how do we get more fiber in our diets? I mean, what are the different kinds are there different kinds of fiber, and where do we get those?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's different types of fiber. There's insoluble versus soluble. I wouldn't worry too much about that right now. You want to worry more about how much fiber you're actually getting in our diets. And so I think the most American population gets about 9 grams to 13 grams a day. And we need 25 to 35 grams a day. And if you look at it, it's not hard to get fiber in our diet. But when you're new to this, you're looking at it and you see foods that only have 1 gram or 4 grams. And you're like, oh my gosh, how much do I have to eat to actually get more fiber in my diet? So I'm going to help you with that. And fiber is so important because it helps, like you said, it helps lower our, it can help lower our fat intake, but it's going to help lower our cholesterol levels. It's going to help you feel more full. It's going to help regulate our blood sugar levels. Some of the best ways are fruits. So eating more fruits in the day, just snacking on fruits, berries, pears, any high fruit, any fruits with the skin on is the best thing you can do. So apples, leave the skin on. Pears, leave the skin on. Even kiwis. It sounds really weird, but kiwis are great to leave the skin on. I know. Another way is including vegetable in your meals. So having half of your plate as vegetables, that's the best way to do it. And a lot of times people don't like to eat vegetables. Either find a way to get them in, even if you sprinkle a little cheese on it, or you cook it differently. But one of the things I do is I always eat my vegetables first, because if I fill up on everything else on my plate, I usually might eat a few bites of, let's say, a salad, and then that's it. But if you eat the salad first or you eat the vegetables first, one, you feel more full, but also you got those vegetables in. Another way to increase fiber is whole grains. So choose whole grains over refined grains. What that means is whole grains have the germ and the bran intact. And so they make them more nutritious, obviously higher fiber. So oatmeal, brown rice, barley, chia seeds are like a nutritional powerhouse. 2 tablespoons of chia seeds a day are an incredible way to get fibers in. So you could throw that in your shakes. You could throw chia seeds in your yogurts. Avocados have a great source of fiber. You could do fiber supplements. A little iffy on those. I'd rather somebody actually eat food versus fiber supplements. But if somebody does have that recommendation to decrease cholesterol and fat in their plan, and they just really can't get it in, that's a good way. You just want to watch for bloating, and sometimes that causes some gas and some bloating and discomfort, and it can inhibit other medications. Reading labels is a great way to just in general start looking at fiber intake. So a good source of fiber in food is 2.5 grams of fiber. So if you look at the nutrition label and you see that this food, let's say popcorn, has 2.5 grams per serving, it's a good source. An excellent source is 5 grams or more. So I always try to look for foods with even 4 grams or more. That's a great way to look at that. But vegetables, popcorn's okay. Popcorn's all right. I think
all things in moderation.
Yes, I think popcorn's good. It's just what popcorn do we usually eat, and it's usually loaded with butter and
and salt. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So go for plain popcorn, but 1 cup or 1.5 cups of popcorn is a great source of fiber.
Oh, you mean so we can't do like the giant tubs from the movie theater?
Remember, I don't like to say no, but
okay, it's back to all things in moderation. I mean, that's one of my that's something I live by when it comes to food in particular. Like, you know,
absolutely.
Like, I'm kind of addicted to chocolate, so I allow myself one little tiny piece of chocolate a day, and
right,
it just sort of yeah.
Because if you deprive yourself, then you find the bag of chocolate chips and eat the whole thing.
Right, exactly. That's the thing, is that then you're going to lose control, and you're going to be you're going to feel so deprived. You're just going to have to eat all the chocolate chip cookies. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's a lot of great info on fiber. So I appreciate that. But actually, we're talking about popcorn, and that kind of leads me into the next thing I wanted to ask you about is about salt. So reducing salt in the diet is important to help reduce your blood pressure, because it's really salt is really tied to high blood pressure. So but salt is everywhere. I mean, how do we do that? How do we identify where the salt is and try to reduce that?
Yeah, you're right. Salt is everywhere, and it's found naturally in foods. I think the problem is, so we should have less than, or 2,300 milligrams a day or less of sodium in our diet. The American population can get in 4,000 to 7,000 milligrams a day. So pretty much, I mean, you're almost tripling what we usually get in. 75% of the sodium that we generally eat comes from processed foods and packaged foods. So that's one thing to do to lower our salt intake. Start looking at labels. I'm always big about helping people. If they say, what's one thing I could do to lose weight or to help myself get healthy? One of the tips would be just start looking at labels, and you'll be amazed at what you see. Some tips for lowering sodium is don't add it at the table. And that's hard for a lot of people because we're used to the sodium intake that we take. But a crazy thing and a very true thing is you can actually and literally change your taste buds. And so once you start to lower that sodium intake in your daily diet, you will start to eat things with more sodium or eat the way you used to and be like, oh my gosh, how did I eat that before? So just stop adding salt in after you eat or after you cook a meal. That's a good thing. When you add salt, if you are going to add salt, maybe just add a pinch instead of taking that salt shaker or just throwing in on the salt and not really tasting the food first. You can add flavor with dried herbs. So basil, thyme, parsley, cilantro, any dried herbs are a great way to increase the flavor of foods that we're cooking. Choosing fresh foods instead. I mean, you could do canned foods. That's okay, but that's completely okay. But I would get the canned foods with no sodium added or low sodium, or let's say you just couldn't find that, or you forgot, or let's say you look in the pantry and you have all these canned foods that don't have low sodium, you can always wash them underwater, and that will take almost all of the salt out. But the salt that you add in canned foods, the salt that you add after that is far less than if you buy canned foods with sodium added into it. So it's another way to look at it. Pre-cut foods, so pre-cut meats, I would get low sodium. Those are loaded with salt, nitrates. So make sure you get the low sodium meats. Boarheads has a great brand.
You mean like deli slices and stuff like that? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Boarheads is a great serving or a great brand for that. And so going back to canned foods, soups is another thing. A lot of people will do canned soups. So canned soup has as much as 940 milligrams of sodium. Well, remember I said we needed less than 2,300 a day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's so deceptive because they'll say something on there like, low fat or no cholesterol or whatever, and makes you feel like it's healthy. But often when they make some big claim like that on the label, there'll be something else that's like really bad about it, like the sodium content, or sometimes no fat foods, it's the sugar content, it's like you get rid of one thing and then you replace it with something else. So
yeah.
So I kind of hate those, those big claims that they make.
It's frustrating. And again, it goes back to just start looking at some labels. Yeah. So people can start being a little bit more, just being aware. And you're right, you'll be amazed. So if you look at a seasoning I love is adobo. It goes on everything. Well, when I look at the serving or the sodium content, it's the same as regular salt, which is fine, but I have to limit it. To me, it's just like, oh, it's a fun seasoning. It's not salt.
Like, it is salt.
Use a lot of salt. Yeah. So instead, you could do that and do a lot less, or Mrs. Dash, they have great seasonings as well. So we can add flavor to our food. We just got to look at some other options.
Yeah. And cooking your own food with, fresh vegetables and meat, so important. That I did a medical mission trip in Ecuador, and nobody there had high blood pressure, which I thought was interesting because they're probably all eating fresh vegetables and meat. It's not processed. But their blood pressure was amazing. And I think that just says so much about the way we eat,
Yeah. It goes back to, I'm sure everybody's heard this. You always hear dietitians say it, of course, is shopping around the perimeter of the grocery store. But it's so true. And it's really not that hard. Nowadays, there's so many different varieties and things that are not processed and prepackaged. But if you can shop that perimeter of the grocery store, that's a huge help right there.
Right. Start in the produce section. That's where I start.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to another huge topic, no pun intended. But it's one we're going to talk about here, and we're obviously won't be able to talk about everything related to this topic, but it's weight control. Being overweight, it just raises all the risk factors for heart disease. That's going to raise your blood pressure, your cholesterol. It'll put you at risk for diabetes. And so many people struggle with obesity. Can you just give us some real quick tips on how we can change our diets to control our weight?
Absolutely. There's a lot of stuff out there.
And it's so confusing with the fad diets. I mean, everybody's got a weight loss diet. So, we need some real good info here.
Okay. I got it. Okay. How much time do we have? No, I'm just kidding.
Right. No, it's a huge topic, and I think we later on might ought to do a separate talk just on weight control, but
sure.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll give some simple tips. And when I say these, I think people should take in, when you're hearing this, just take in one thing and start changing it. Sometimes when we try to make all these changes, nothing happens when we get frustrated. And that's why a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years goes by. And we're like, oh my gosh, I really need to start working out again. Or I've got to start, I finally have to start losing this weight. So I don't believe in any diet. I do believe in, when it comes to food overall, watching your carbohydrate intake. And because of that, the higher carbs that we eat, the more fat that will be stored in our body, and increased insulin sensitivity, and so much more into that. And a lot of people can eat about, if the American Dietetic Association or any other regulations will say, eat about 45 to 65% of carbohydrates. That's about 300 grams a day. You want to cut that down to about 50 to 150 grams a day. That's what a low carb diet would be. So again, I don't like to use the word diet. We'll talk about lifestyle. So just watching the amount of carbohydrates you eat. Again, just start looking at labels. And if you start saying, okay, I should probably watch it. If I want to do a little bit of a lower carb and I'm eating 200, 300 grams a day, probably eating an excessive amount. Another thing would be this is very basic, eat slower. I mean, just actually chewing your food. There was a study done that the calorie intake was decreased when they did a study of people that ate 1.5 times slower than what they normally would eat. They ate 10% less calories. If they ate two times slower than what they normally eat, they eat 15% less calories in a day. Well, that's a lot added up over time. And so those things, eating slower might sound great, but an actual way to do that is take your fork and put it down. Take your fork, put it down, or maybe drink water in between. Another thing would be avoiding sugary drinks, like orange juice. Juice sounds great. Again, I know I mentioned I don't ever say good versus bad foods or things that you can't have. Juice is one thing I just would not ever have in the house, right?
Right. I try not to drink my calories.
Yes.
Right. Because you can get so many extra calories just from the sugary drinks, and fruit juice is one of them. I mean, it's full of sugar.
Yep. And it's hard to control yourself on that. If you're like, well, just have a little bit of orange juice. No, it's too good. Drinking water before meals, that's a great thing. So tell yourself, I'm going to drink even just 10 ounces or drink a glass before you actually eat. That'll help slow it down and help you feel more full. Eating that soluble fiber, that's a great way. So start looking at labels or start getting the foods of berries, pears. Berries are the best thing you could do, honestly. But start eating that soluble fiber. That will help, again, make you feel more full, help you go to the bathroom, help lower that fat intake, and lower cholesterol as well. And then, of course, the biggest thing would be exercising. So general American Heart Association recommendations are going to be do 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week. At least 150 minutes throughout your week. And so if you need to split that up, split that up. But I think this is one thing everybody kind of puts off. And again, take this slow. If it's getting out and walking for 5 minutes, that's better than what you would normally do, because you'll probably end up going 10 minutes. If you throw on a podcast or call a friend, even if it's a slow walk, it's something it's getting you out. But maybe it's 10 minutes 2 times a day. Maybe it's 10 minutes once a day to start. But start getting in some exercise, because that, of course, is going to help you in so many ways.
Yeah, that's huge. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. And a lot of people have arthritic knees, which makes it difficult as well. But, there's swimming and water aerobics, and there's ways to get around that. Right. Okay. Well, Danielle, that's all the time we have. And I appreciate your help so much. And we're going to definitely get together and do this again, because there is so much more that we can talk about. I mean, there really is, but you've given us some really great advice today. And I think that this is going to help a lot of people. So I appreciate your help. So, and I want to remind everybody that Danielle has a really awesome cooking show on YouTube called The Fit Girl and the Fat Boy. She's got a lot of great recipes, heart healthy recipes that you need to check out. I tried, there was a green chili recipe that was great, and everybody loved it. It was a great way to get more vegetables in our diet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And some lean protein. So everybody needs to check out Danielle Carr on YouTube, The Fit Girl and Fat Boy. And I am Dr. Eva Mackey, family physician here in Rockwall. Check out my website, www.rockwalls with an S, GEMMD.com. So thank you everybody for watching, and thank you, Danielle, for joining us. I'll see you later.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.